Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another Parsha Minute. We're coming to you live from the Torch Center. Every Friday at 12 o'clock, we have a Talmud Lunch and Learn. And before we begin the Talmud study, I just want to share with our friends on Facebook a little thought about this week's Parsha. So we talk about the Menorah in Parshas Ba'aloscha. In this week's Parsha, we talk about the Menorah. And we know that in the construction of the Menorah, Moses couldn't figure it out, right? And then the Midrash I want to share with you says that it had to be, the Torah says that it had to be made out of one solid piece of gold. See, usually the way these goldsmiths and silversmiths, the way they craft their jewelry or whatever it is that they assemble, or candelabras, they make each piece separately, and then they solder them together. But God says, no, you can't do that. It's got to be miksha achas. It has to be one solid piece. Okay? So, and in this week's portion, it says, V'zeh ma'aseh menorah, and this is the work of the candelabrum. Right? So the menorah that's going to be present in the tabernacle needs to be made in this way. Moses tried, couldn't get it right. So God says, here, I'll show you how it's done. Okay? So the Midrash says a very interesting thing. There were four things that Moses couldn't figure out until God showed it to him. All right? And what was it? The first was the menorah, the candelabrum. The second was how to bring sacrifices. The third was how to make the half shekel, which was later used to count the Jewish people. And the fourth was how to sanctify the moon. How to sanctify the moon. We know Chodesh is Elochem Rosh Chodashim. We know that Nisan is the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people, was that Nisan is the first month. And then we talk about blessing the moon. But when do we bless the moon? At what point is it considered a new month? Well, we can write it in a book, but you have to actually see it and know this is what is meant. So, just as an interesting side note, if you take the word miksha, which means a beaten solid piece of gold, okay, in this case it was gold, so it comes from the word kashem, which means difficult. It's not an easy thing to craft. But if you take the letters of mem, kuf, shin, and hey, the mem refers to the menorah that Moses didn't know. These are the four things that Moses needed God to teach him how to do. Number one is the menorah. The kuf is for karbanot, which is the offerings. The shin is for the shkalim, right? That we said the shekels that he needed to learn how to make. And the hey is for hachodesh, which is for how to make the blessing on the new month and when the new month is. So these are the four areas. But I want to point out something which I think is critical for us to understand. And that is, if you don't have the oral law, you don't have Torah. It is impossible, we said this so many times, it is impossible to understand even a word of the Torah without the oral law that explains it. And here we see a perfect example of the oral law, because the Torah doesn't tell us how to make the menorah. God says, here, I'll show you. What do you mean he'll show me? How does that help me now in 2017 know how that was done? Oh, well, Moses shared that with Aaron, and then shared it with the heads of the tribes, and with the elders, and with the prophets, and so on and so forth, all the way down to us knowing today the details of that. But just from the words of the Torah, we don't know how that was done. We have no idea how it was done, right? You take the example of the month. Right? We have a blessing that we say every month at the beginning of a new month, right? Which in Houston most synagogues did last Saturday night. It's usually done on a Saturday night right after Shabbos, and the whole congregation goes outside and they bless the new month. They bless the new moon. But when is that? When does that new moon begin? And there's a lot of discussion in the Mishnah and the Talmud of exactly when they would identify. It's a new moon. Now we can make the blessing on the new moon. Well, if we don't have a tradition that tells us exactly that time, all of the writings won't help you have an understanding of something you need to see. right? It's like if no one ever told you that this is the color blue, you'd never know that this is the color blue. Right? But because we're familiar with the color blue and its association in name as being blue, we know, oh, whenever we see this color, it means blue, right? That's the color, that's what it's called, and so on and so forth, red and green. But when we're dealing with a kosher animal, right? How do we know what split hooves are? How in the world would someone ever know what split hooves are? God says, maybe it means that it has, eyebrows that are split. Like, who knows what split hooves mean, right? Okay, today you just say, okay, Google, and you ask your questions, and oh, my phone woke up, and you ask your question, but it has to be based on a again, 3,300 years ago when the Torah is being given, the Jewish people need to know, what does this mean? God explains it to them. Now, we brought a different medrash back when we spoke about this in the Breakneck Through the Bible on Tuesday night class. We mentioned that there were 3 times that all of the animals came from all over the world and arrived at one place. The first was when Adam gave them names. The second time was by Noah and the flood. They all came to Noah's ark. And the third time was when God was teaching the Jewish people the laws of kosher and non-kosher animals, so that they can actually see a physical. How would we know if I tell you a rhinoceros? What is a rhinoceros? Maybe it's a little fly. How would you know that that's not a kosher animal? Right? It means you have to know, because the Torah tells us specifically a camel. Right? The camel is one of the exceptions that chews its cud and doesn't have split hooves. Right? But how would we know what a camel is? Maybe it's referring to a different animal. Oh, so God says, this is a camel. This is an arnevet, a rabbit. And this is, so that we know exactly what's going on. So the point that I want to make here is like this. It is impossible for us to separate the Torah, the written Torah, from the oral Torah. They must go together. Because otherwise, we are clueless in our endeavors to understanding Torah. So Moses needed, I think, this may be one of the reasons behind. So why couldn't God give Moses this knowledge? Why couldn't he give him this knowledge? He'll give him, Moses was an incredibly wise man. Why couldn't God give him the wisdom to figure this out? No, because you're going to have some things that you can't, that you're going to need to have tradition to teach you from generation to generation to generation. Right? We discussed how the NASA has figured out that 29.5 whatever to the millionth of a second days, every 29 and a half days, and so on and so forth of the milliseconds, is when the moon is renewed. But 2,000 years ago in the Talmud, this question was asked, and one of the great Tanaic sages rattles it off the top of his head, tells him exactly 29 point this, and you can go see the Talmud over there. Exactly to the millisecond, which, by the way, NASA is off by 2 milliseconds. Okay? How did the Talmud know? And they asked this great Tanaic sage, how did you know this? See, he says, Kach limduni mi beis avi abba, which is code word. He says, this is what I learned from my father's home, which is code word for this is what my father learned from his father, from his father, from his father, all the way to Moses and Mount Sinai. So we have the greatest treasure in our Torah. Let's not only take the part that's known as the written Torah. Now, I've had people tell me all the time, it's Midrash. Right? As if Midrash doesn't mean anything. As if Midrash has no significance. Or that's a terrible thing, because it gives us all of the depth, all of the behind the scenes that's not included in the very abbreviated words of the Torah. So we must have the oral Torah in order to understand the written Torah. I see you have your Midrash says. Good job. So with that, my friends, we're going to sign off here. wish you all a good Shabbos, and I will be traveling the next couple of weeks, but I look forward to sharing thoughts of Torah from Jerusalem, the home of the Jewish people, the eternal capital of the world, and even if the U.S. Embassy is not there, it's still the capital of the world, and we look forward to learning much more together. God willing, everyone have a lovely summer. This class is going to continue throughout the entire summer, without any exceptions. Every day of the summer, at 12 o'clock on Friday at the Torch Center. Be here or miss lunch. Right? Those are the options. Have a lovely day, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and have a good Shabbos.